This is WCEO's Elevate Us All, intentional conversations and research data that illuminate the lived experiences of women of color in our community. Our goal is to lift up solutions that help Black and Brown women feel seen, honors our experiences, and ultimately elevates all the residents of Central Ohio to shared prosperity. I'm CEO Keena Smith, and thank you for joining us.
All right, we are now live in the studio, virtual studio, as it were, with the Dr. Iris Cooper and the Fran Frazier. And listen, I have to tell you, in the sessions that we were going to do, when this one had to get postponed, I literally, quite honestly, had people who reached out to me and they were like, no, I needed that. They were like, I needed that wisdom. Where's that going? When are we redoing this? So I'm super excited that we were able to reschedule this. And I have to tell y'all too, for anyone who has any kind of stereotype or belief that grown women are just sitting at home scratching, y'all were the busiest people to get on the calendar. I didn't know we were going to do it. So when we were able to, like, the planets aligned on some text messages in the wee hours of the evening to make it happen, I was like thrilled and over the moon. I honestly really did finish the text message, hit send, and I was just like, yes. And seeing the miracle has happened. So thank you so much for creating the time and the space for this conversation. So grateful that you're both here. The topic for this one was passing prosperity from our Black women elders. And this was not a question that I put on the list, but I have to ask y'all, do you see yourselves as elders in the community? And I don't mean like elders like old people. I'm talking about elders like wisdom culturally. Do you see yourselves as that? Yes, no, why?
Well, I would say yes, because I've been around the block a few times. Um, Baby boomers, that means that there have been a few generations um, in my life. And different values have been exposed to me that I've embraced. Some I have, some I haven't. But yes, I do know a few lessons about life. Some of them were painful, some of them were fun, some of them I'm still learning. But yes, I do have some experiences that I think others can benefit from.
I I'm just experiencing life, and I think there are times when I have something to share, and I will. I don't know if I'm that definitive as Dr. Iris is. I've certainly had various life experiences. I don't always know if it may be valuable to me. I just don't know how valuable it might be to someone else. But I'm happy to share. I definitely have an opinion about everything. So
Yes, and I'm grateful for that because we need that food, you know. So I was doing this workshop. This was maybe a couple months ago, and there was a quote because we were doing it on compassionate leadership. And the quote that we started to enter into that conversation was, wisdom without compassion is ruthlessness, and compassion without wisdom is folly. And we were kind of like centering ourselves inside of this word wisdom. And I asked the question of the women in the space, and I have to tell you, the reaction was really interesting, all the way from joyful and jubilant and grateful to sadness. I asked them, who was or is your wise woman? Right. And so I'm thinking about who imparted knowledge, wisdom, who do you feel has their energy, their spirit, their DNA on you in helping guide your path? Who would you both say is your wise woman or was your wise woman?
Well, I guess there could be no other than my mother, because she was a typical Black woman who emerged from the South and moved to the North with her husband and made a life as the first Black family in a neighborhood, and worked as a social worker, but also sold Avon. They were hustlers. My dad was a chauffeur, but he also served parties, so they were hustlers. So I think that's where I kind of got my entrepreneurial spirit, not always putting all my eggs in one basket. But my mom was strong. She was very, very strong. Not very emotional, but very strong-willed. However, her attitude and her aspirations were crushed when my older sister was killed in a car accident at 18, and she was graduating from college at 18. She was, as I've been told, brilliant. And that changed the course of her life. And probably my father's too, but I was certainly closer physically to my mom. But she did emerge from that grief with taller trees to climb, if I can put it that way, to make up for that loss. And she had aspirations for me and for herself, and just, you know, if I can do something to make this world a better place, I'm going to do it. So she was just busy creating things, helping people as a social worker, leading in the church, just putting stuff in that vacant spot that my sister left. And I kind of followed along with it. I knew she was hurt. But I didn't want to be a part of that hurt. I wanted to be a part of the healing process. And there's 14 years between us. Every one of us was 7 years apart. And I was the baby. So I tried to put a big bandage over that big sore. And that's kind of been my aspirational energy all along, is what my mom lost, and how she wanted to be she would want to be in the good category as far as a servant to humanity.
And Dr. Iris, did you feel like you had to fix it for her? Yeah.
My brother was the middle child, and there's a lot that we can say about middle children. But when you're the middle child and your older sister is a genius, virtuoso pianist, one of the few Black faces at Indiana University back in the day, it was some big shoes to fill. But I could see that education was very important to my parents coming from the South that couldn't finish school, went to work. So that was number one on the list. You're going to go to college and you're going to finish. And she loved music. So I took piano lessons till all through high school, played the cello, whatever my mom needed or wanted, but brought her joy. That's what I tried to do. Now, some of the men that I got hooked up with weren't too, she wasn't too enthused about. And I think a couple of times my dad wanted to throw one of them out of the house. But other than that, I think about her every day as to, what she would have done in life had she lived longer, but what she wanted for me.
Thank you for that. I felt that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
What about you, Miss Fran?
Wise women. There have been many wise women in my life. My path has always been a spiritual path. I've always been aware that it's a spiritual path. So I'll hold off on talking about my mom, but my mom's sister. I'm named after both of my mother's sisters. In our family, we are all named after, there are 8 of us, and we're all named after our parents, siblings, or best friends. And so consequently, a lot of my siblings named their children after aunts and parents. And so the names just keep right on, rolling for generations. One of the first wise women was my Aunt Sissy, my mother's sister. I was born 6 months after her child should have been born. Her baby was stillborn. So I became, and my understanding is that they had a big ritual over my mother's stomach, and kind of laid the groundwork early about the kind of person I was going to be and what I was going to do in the world. And so I got that constantly growing up, and a lot from my Aunt Sissy. She made sure I had all kinds of certain experiences growing up. I think that's why I'm still in love with patent leather shoes, because I got at least 1 or 2 pair every spring and summer to go with all the outfits, because we would travel during the summer. We'd go see relatives who lived in other cities, other states, that kind of thing. But she always made me feel very special. My mom created a sense of mission in me. And you heard that a lot in our family, what your responsibility was, what you were expected to do. I grew up with very, very high expectations, very high, which is probably why I'm a little crazy today. But when I went to Norfolk State, the chair of the special ed department was Dr. Ruth Winstead Diggs, incredibly wonderful, wise woman who really, really cared about me, and literally has shaped who I am professionally. When I was at Norfolk State, I mean, she really drove into me the importance of making space for Black people. Very clear about that. And then another woman, her name was Rosetta Williams. Rosetta was the director of a recreation center in Norfolk. I did a lot of volunteer work in Norfolk because I couldn't just be on campus. So I was in the community doing all kinds of stuff while I was there. Rosetta gave me a lot of woman knowledge about how to see myself in the world, how to be independent, and how to feel good about being independent and an independent thinker. Truthfully, there are many, many women who poured into me, who I always feel an obligation to give back on many different levels, because they were, what they gave was just so unconditional, just loving, I was surrounded by Black women who loved being Black and who felt that race work was the work of every Black person. And I'll give you, if I'm not going too far, or I'll give you a really good experience. Well, it'll give you an idea about my mother as well. So I was supposed to go to the University of Pennsylvania right after being at Little Flower Catholic High School for girls, private girls school, Catholic. And I decided I couldn't do it. My dad was too controlling, couldn't breathe without him. And my mom was not a, what's the word? My mother wasn't as the way Iris described her mom. My mother was quiet. They both grew up very middle class people, both mom and my dad. So the expectations for how you were to be, and, you know, like I got 1A my entire 12 years of education. Well, I'm sorry, 1B.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got that B, I was in high school, but ever since then, it was always straight A's because that was the expectation. And got that B, and you would have thought I had gotten an F. It was really traumatic for me. So my mother was like, so they didn't give out A's in this at all then, right? That like the only letter they gave out was a B. And I was like, no, people got A's. I just happened to get a B. It was something else. But my dad was kind of like the opposite. So when I went to Norfolk State finally, because I signed myself up for VISTA. President Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, had just started this Volunteers in Service to America program. So, had just started. So there were a lot of hippies, college kids who decided that they were going to be the domestic Peace Corps of the United States. So that's what I signed myself up, but you could only do it when you were 18. So I had to wait. And so my father had heard that all the white girls at UP were wearing beaver coats that year. So he bought me a beaver coat, you know, so I could fit in and everything. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be needing this beaver coat where I'm going. It was terrible. They called in everybody. My sister had just married a heart surgeon. You know, everybody was living up to their potential.
Yes.
Except for me. So anyway, they were not happy with me. I turned down a marriage proposal, 2-carat diamond, to live in a broken down convent in Baltimore.
Wow.
And I worked at Johns Hopkins, though. You know, I always like lifted it up to my parents, but it's Johns Hopkins. I'm at Johns Hopkins. They didn't care. Anyway, I spent a year in Portsmouth, Virginia, in a little town called Mount Hermon. I was teaching peanut farmers how to read and write, and trying not to get shot up by the Klan. And so it took my mother a couple of years to kind of get over the fact that I didn't do whatever I was supposed to do, you know. But anyway, so I think I've always been kind of independent, and then I happened to run into all of these other independent thinking women who just kind of helped me right along the way. But my mother did say to me, I think when I was 16, you're very, very bright. So you're going to have white people who won't like the fact that you are a smart Black girl. You are attractive. So there are going to be girls who think that you think you're cute. There are going to be days when you get hungry. There are going to be days when people are just going to get in your way because they think they can. So she gave me a whole list of things. And she said, and You may not like the way you've grown up with me and your dad. She said, but if you don't plan your plan, you will get whatever you get. And I didn't think I remembered all of that because I was just trying not to pay attention. But I did remember it. And she was absolutely correct. I could check off stuff, like, yep, she said that was going to happen. That was going to happen. But she was right about having a plan and having it flexible enough so that if things didn't go well, you weren't devastated. You just regrouped. And you always had a plan B. So my mother was wise in that way.
Yeah. When I'm, go ahead, Dr. Iris.
Oh, Fran just made me think about another role that probably was in many Black girls' lives, teenagers, when we grew up, and that was the hairdresser. My hairdresser was a friend of my mother's, and she was an entrepreneur, the only person I'd ever seen have their own business. And she was also very active in the church. She and her husband were upstanding citizens, and you could go to, as I call her to this day, and she's 102 years old, and I see her when I go to Evansville, I go talk to her. She was my mother's best friend. And so when I needed to talk to somebody, it was when she was pressing my hair as a kid, But I watched her evolve as a woman. They adopted a child, and she became a full-time mom. She went back to school and got her education degree and her master's degree. She got a real estate license, and she even continued to work after her son died of a health-related illness. And so I am still close to her. She is still my go-to person for advice, and she's clear. Her brain is still working 100%. And the hairdresser was an important role for a lot of Black women that you could talk to. It was confidential.
That's right.
Confidential.
That's right.
But I don't have that today.
Yeah. I'm sitting with y'all stories, and if this wasn't to be recorded, I probably would have just for real sat still in them. And what it's making me think about, and perhaps it's just because of the kind of work I do, I'm thinking about epigenetic trauma. I'm thinking about, sometimes in some space we call it like generational curses and all this kind of stuff, but it's like these heavy things that are in our families and unique things, particularly that Black women carry. And what we do with all that. I'm thinking, Dr. Iris, about like having a sibling transition, and it's not even, what was interesting in sitting still with your story is not that you didn't have your own grief, but you were very aware of your mother's grief.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see her. They had her locked down somewhere in the house. So they had to bring in people to be mother as she went through that grieving process.
Yeah.
So she was all, for a while, she was just always away until, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is an important point. She took me to nursery school without a coat in the winter. And when they tried to call her on the telephone, she wasn't picking up the phone. So when my father and my mother and my brother came to get me at nursery school, the nun came out and she tore her to pieces.
Wow.
She says, you don't mistreat this child because you've lost another one. So you need to wake up. You need to realize that God left you here with you. She gave her a sermon to her heart.
Wow.
And from that point on, she was on the job as a mom every single day.
Wow.
Wow.
So I think about, like, in hearing that, there's so many parts to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we carry. And now if we'd known then what we know now, to know that, like, that kind of heaviness has a physiological manifestation. It impacts our body, our minds, our spirits, and there's some ways that, some beautiful things come in, other things that could be challenges that come from it. And then, Miss Fran, when I hear about your experience with your mom, and what was echoing and sitting in my spirits when you were talking about this high expectations, but it's a different kind of high expectations. This is the kind that we weren't comforted by, right? That we almost feel imprisoned by this high expectation.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and it reminds me of, some other stories I've heard. I think my mother had a story like that about her mother, where her mother didn't have education, but she expected, my mom to live away and be away. And if she didn't fit, and it had a profound impact on my mother, which then had a profound impact on me.
That's
And
right.
I'm sure my grandmother's stuff came from somewhere else too.
That's
And
right.
I wonder, in the seats y'all are in with the wisdom that you have right now, in reflecting on it, what do you think you inherited that wasn't yours? Like, that some of that stuff, some of that heaviness that wasn't yours. And how did you mitigate some of that heaviness to make it at least a little bit lighter, so that you could find your own way and find your own wellness in that?
So my mom finished high school, didn't go to college, but definitely finished high school. And so even for my sisters, the expectation was always, you will do incredible stuff with your life, not just the mundane. You will do incredible things with your life. And I know for a long time, I struggled with, is this the life I called out? Or is this the life I'm living because this was how I was imprinted?
Yes.
And truthfully, I don't know. I can't tell you. Sometimes I think that there was something else I wanted to do. I just can't put my hands on it.
Yeah.
Because it was just expected that you will make incredible contributions to your community. You'll make contributions to your race. You will find ways of creating change. And so whenever I was even in undergrad school, if I was in the newspaper, or if I got an award or whatever, I would send it either to my mom or to my aunt, Sissy, and I would say, I'm doing whatever y'all been telling me to do.
Yeah.
And when I got to be 35, my aunt, Sissy, gave me a photo album. And it literally had everything I had ever sent her over like 2 decades.
Wow.
And it was amazing to all my letters, just everything. It was really something. But in my 30s, I literally struggled with, is this the life I said I wanted, or who is this? Whose life is this?
Yeah. Because even in listening to it, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, like, this straddles this fence about, like, regular, and are we viewing regular as mediocrity, when it's just like, I'm tired, I don't want to be, phenomenal right now, I just want to take a nap, I want to eat some food and breathe, and can I do that and still be worthy, versus having to do all of that? Because I'm sitting here with full presence and awareness of who I'm sitting in StreamYard with right now. I'm sitting in here with two legends, and it's true, even if y'all don't want it to be so, it is true.
Yeah, I'm not sure about all those titles.
It is, but the thing is, there's, like, I would imagine exhaustion in that too, if there's just some times when you just want to, like, I'm sure do y'all ever have moments where you just kind of want to go to Target, no, nobody know you can go in there,
You
Go to
know what?
Kroger, go grocery shopping, and you don't have to stop, talk to nobody.
You know what's really funny about that? I said that to a friend just 2 days ago. I had to go, where was I? I think Walmart to pick up something. And it was like, do I go like this or do I change my clothes? And my conversation with her was, there are some days where, truthfully, there are some days where I do not have this thing in my head. I'll give you a good example. I just scratch all of that. One summer, I was in my 40s. One summer, I was with a group of women that I had been organizing to do women's work. I decided I was not wearing a bra that day. I just could not handle one more thing. So no bra. And so this woman who was very new to our group said, do you don't have a bra on? And now you couldn't actually see, but maybe I wasn't as perky as I normally would have been. And I said, you're absolutely right. I just did not want to be braced up today.
Yes.
And she said to me, she says, but your appearance is important. You're our leader. I said, no, I am not. I am not. I am somebody who was following what I feel is in me to do.
Yeah.
I am not your leader. I am not my leader. I am not a leader. I am just doing my best to be obedient to my own call. But I remember, so I get reminded of that every now and then, that somebody else's lens is kind of dictating how I am, how I look, what I wear.
Yes.
And I'm not always up for that.
Yeah. It's heavy.
Some days I'm just not up for that. And I realize that no matter what someone else says about how they perceive me, the only thing I know is at some point in my relationship with God, I agreed to do this. And so my prayer is always, let me do what my contract with you is saying.
Yeah.
So I don't need all of the other titles or language or whatever. If I live out what I said that I would do, then, and I'm obedient to that.
Yes.
Then that's good enough for me. I don't need all the other stuff. But I do know that many times that's the expectation, so because of that, I'm mindful of what the ambiance is. I'm mindful of what my energy is. But there are days when I just do not want to be on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never had that opportunity when I was building my career. I went into banking, and I believe that I was the first Black female commercial lender in Central Ohio. And that required you to put on a face every day, to put on a suit every day, to really competition was always top of mind,
Yes.
with the white boys on the street,
Right.
with the white boys in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I just had to put on that face and that uh, uh, competitive nature every day when I got up in the morning. So it was a navy blue suit and a little white blouse and a little tie or black suit or something like that. So I played a role. Although I do believe I kept my authenticity as a Black woman, because most of my clients were Black businesses who had been
Right.
ignored,
Right.
and working with, community organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
So
you had to represent, Iris.
I felt that
But
pressure.
and
Yeah.
I hear too in both directions, right? Because like there's this part where you're competing
Mhm.
with in all of these white spaces,
Mhm.
but then if you have all of these Black clientele, there has to be some measure of cultural
Yeah,
authenticity.
absolutely.
So and you're
Absolutely.
stuck somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you know what? I worked for a man who respected the differences,
Mm.
and and to this day we're still friends. This white guy who believed in me to the extent that he would say to me on the phone, if you think this company is worthy of this line of credit or loan, go ahead and put my name on it
Mm.
without even seeing the numbers.
Mm.
And so I was fortunate to have that kind of trust and relationship, but it was deliberate. I wanted to be the best in the bank, but I also wanted to be the best on Mount Vernon Avenue.
That's right.
What did that, I asked this question in one of our previous conversations, and to the best of my ability in wording this, what did that cost? Like, what do you think was the cost of that?
Well, let me get that started and make it quick. My personal life was not the best, and I won't go into a lot of details about it, but in the midst of being a leader in the bank and trying to be productive and effective with what I could do in the Black community. Um, and at the same time, I was a part of the beginning of Glory Foods, which
Oh, right.
would be a multi-million-dollar company. Um, my personal life suffered, um, but not to the extent that I gave up trying to be the person that I think God wanted me to be and that my parents wanted me to be. So I kept fighting and kept moving forward as best I could until I got over those humps. But you have to be aware that sometimes um, life isn't a straight line. It's just not a
Yes.
straight line.
I remember I had this happened on two different occasions, and the way they happened, it felt so spiritual. I knew to not take it lightly. Years apart, maybe like 3-4 years apart, two different times, an older Black woman pulled me to the side and basically said to me, "You've been called to do something unique, and you're gonna probably have to go by yourself. And there's a special preparation, there's a special experience, it's a special set of skills, and most people don't have this set of skills, and you're going to be called to do something, and just know, like, you're going to want to take a whole bunch of people with you, and that's not going to be possible."
Huh.
And I remember hearing that and wanting to just run away in the opposite direction from everything that both of these women said, until it started coming to pass. And I feel both of your stories, like I'm sitting here and I'm trying to just like sit and absorb this masterclass. And I hope for those watching this, you can like put yourself in a position as a student and listen to this too, because I'm watching now some of the things happen in my life that you both are talking about. I have felt those expectations where I'm like, I don't know if I'm capable of it, or I don't know if it's going to look like what you want it to look like on me, and when I wanted to like have a community of people, whether it was friends, anything like that. And I'm like, oh, I don't have the circle that I thought I had, or I don't have the people in my life that I thought this is going to be me doing this. And how, in those instances for both of you, how did you take care of yourself holistically? Like how, and whatever might have been like valley parts of that, how did you get out of some of those experiences where you're just like, this is, this is a hard moment to this point, because y'all are like thriving. Like I'm looking at y'all and like, I know that life is complex and complicated, but y'all are here. You're on this side of the daisies,
Mm-hmm.
With a track record. And I don't just mean of like material successes, but you have relationships, you have an alignment regarding spirit, you have, stories, you have legacy, these intangible things that you can speak to now. You can lean into this wisdom. What do you attribute going from those heavy moments to longevity, and whatever it took to have the longevity to be in this moment right here in the year of our Lord?
Well, I can just tell you real simply. I learned early in life to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And regardless of what chair I was sitting in, I always knew who I was, who my parents were, who my friends were, and who my commitment was to. And although I might have been sitting at the head of the table in the loan committee room, I knew that I was there to represent a group of people who may not necessarily even be on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I never forgot who I was and why I was there. And see, that's part of the best part of being a baby boomer is we saw parts of the civil rights movement through our families and our neighborhoods and everything. So I've never forgotten that, ever. I went to Fisk for 2 years. And had to leave because of some financial difficulties, but I know who I am. And I know who my parents are from the South. And I know, and I still look at Black people today in a certain way when I just want to just pick everybody up and take them to a higher place in this world. But no, I never forgot that.
Yeah. Do you think, well, let me ask it this way. When you're in thinking about that, the other way that I want to ask this is, well, no, I'm going to leave this open. When y'all are now looking at folks who are, I'm a Gen Xer, and you look at the anyone my age and younger, and I mean in any span, in any space of this, when you see us, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What do you feel like you're watching? Especially in taking this cultural knowledge of like you were saying, Dr. Iris, like you remember this, Ms. Fran, you were talking about like, I know what this was like. I did this work, y'all have put in this work. So when you're watching us now, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? How are we doing? And I mean this honestly. So like if it's like this part is good, Kimberly D, this part is a hot on fire mess. I am here to receive, all of that. But I'm really curious from your lens, from your vantage point, what does this all look like for you?
Go, Iris.
Well, you kind of summed it up. I honestly, the last 2.5 years, I've struggled.
Yeah.
I've some days I couldn't even look at the news.
Yeah.
Because it was so disheartening.
Yeah.
The lack of respect for the journey, the lack of respect for the sharecroppers who lived in Mississippi farms, Martin Luther King. It just breaks my heart to see how we as a people have been treated and to some level how we've responded. And so, right now I am hopeful, prayerful that your generation, and I might have a daughter that's in your generation,
Yeah, I got two. Yeah.
Yeah, that you will take ownership of part of the journey, realizing that you're sitting in a chair that somebody else warmed up for you
Yes.
decades ago.
Yes.
Don't take that for granted. Don't take that for granted. Just the mere fact that we got two Black women speaking from the White House podium makes me want to shout every morning when I see them on TV.
Mhm.
And then to see people criticizing them, they don't know what they have to go through every day to be at
Yes.
that podium.
Yes.
So take ownership of who you are, please. Your generation, everybody after you and between us, this is not just my problem or my opportunity, it's yours.
Yes.
I'm not going to be here
Mhm.
after a while. So, that's one of the things I'm trying to do now. I'm grabbing on to young Black women or younger Black women, and
Yes.
I'm auntie, and I am passing on as much knowledge and as much pride as I possibly can to them so they can keep the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think Dr. Iris has really said it all. I I feel like a lot of our Gen Xers and younger kids have forgotten our history.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That maybe the history is so painful they don't want to remember it. But I think that I've heard kids say, I can't, I won't do that work because it's slave work. And I know what they mean, but a lot of that work created the character that allows us to be who we are today. I think that we've not, and I'm talking about people my age and older and younger, I don't think we've done a good job of sharing our own history of our people. We leave it up to TV and movies to tell our stories, but we're not telling our stories. One of the things that I have our girls do from time to time is to interview the older people in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what is it that they have that you have now that they use to get where they had to go. What woke them up every day and got them to go to work every day when they weren't treated so well? Why did they do that? Which means that you ought to be able to get up and go to school every day and give your best. I think there are a lot of young people who are making incredible waves for intentionally for our race of people. But we have a lot of young people who don't care about that, who are concerned only with themselves. And spiritually, I think it is continuing to weaken our collective spirit, our collective character, that we don't honor. I can tell you that when Joe Biden made Juneteenth a national federal holiday,
Mm-hmm.
I was very upset. I felt like it was another day to barbecue
Mm-hmm.
and not a day to really understand the significance of what Juneteenth was really about and how we need to be mindful every day that there are rights that we have that we're not getting because we don't know about them. And that we need to be vigilant in a way that we've never been vigilant before. So I think it is incredibly important. You know, we talked earlier about some of the recommendations that came from the Commission on Black Girls. When I was a co-chair, and what we heard from girls, literally in focus groups and in public meetings, we don't know enough about our history. And we need to know about the Dr. Iris Coopers of the world, who have done incredible things as an entrepreneur. How does an entrepreneur even think to create the kind of not just wealth, but economy for our people the way she has? So it's not about Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. It's about all the other women who have made, who have given us their lives in a way that we ought to be emulating every day, and that our history has to be made every day. I didn't mean to go on and on about that, but
No,
Thank you. That's nice of you to say that. But you're a leader too, Fran. I've looked up to you in the community because you've done so much so selflessly.
yes.
I wondered, I said, wonder if she ever just goes home and watches TV. Doesn't look like it.
And you
now,
know,
now I do, Iris. Now I do.
Oh, good. Okay.
Now
Well,
I
you
do.
deserve it.
you know, it's funny because the next question, and we're wrapping up, but one of the second to last question I was going to ask you both is, you know, over the course of your personal lives, your professional lives, all you've been through, the word that keeps sitting in my spirit is the sacrifice. You know, I think not just for women, for Black women leaders, there's unspoken sacrifices that are experienced, that there are some people who will never know what you both have been through, meetings you've been through, conversations, experiences, the ways that you may have been treated in some places that ended up being a trailblazing kind of pathway, you know, laid down, and no one will know. There might be some stuff, you know, some stuff you might talk about. Some of those things are the tears in the car or in the shower when we're by ourselves. You know, it's just like the pains that, you know, we only pray about, you know, that no one will know what you experience. And in thinking about the sacrifice, thinking about the journey that you've been on, has your definition of success, of wellness, changed over the years? And if so, where is it now as opposed to where it was before? Because I think when we're younger, you know, we may be defining success one way, especially if it's materialistic or based on titles or something. And we may be defining wellness like eating and sleeping and exercising or something like that. But then looking at the totality of things once you're in a space of wisdom, you know, how now do y'all reflect on success and wellness?
Doris.
Why do you say that? And I think that's a daily kind of assessment when you wake up in the morning, and whether or not you've had the required amount of sleep, and what are you facing that day. I think for a lot of Black women, it's a day-to-day kind of assessment of, was this a good day, or could I have done better? So I never get comfortable with I'm doing well or I'm not doing so well. I just keep thinking that if I wake up in the morning, I got another chance to try to straighten that out or fix that. And I was just telling, I had lunch with a mutual friend of ours, and I was saying that at this point in my life, I didn't want any loose ends with anybody. Closure. So there were two people that I could remember from my professional life that, as a board president, and they were the executive director, we clashed on a couple of issues to the extent where I got off the board. That's normal in that kind of relationship, as you all probably know. The board president and the executive director don't always see eye to eye. Well, I have since contacted both of those people and apologized and tried to let them know it was not personal. It was just that right then and there, I felt that I was needing to get off the board, and I just wanted to apologize if I said or did anything that hurt them personally that wasn't intended that way. So I kind of do that every day. It's looking at the pluses and the minuses and figuring out how I can reduce the minuses the next day. So it's every day.
And you know what I hear in that, Dr. Iris, is atonement. You know, like there's this beautiful spirit of atonement, which takes a maturity that a lot of us don't. Sometimes we go to the other side of the
Well, wait till you get up to be our age or near our age, and you see things a little differently, don't you, Fran?
You do. You really, really do.
You don't want any loose ends. You don't want anybody saying that Iris thinks she's all that. Blah, blah. No,
You don't. You know, and I think the other thing too is you do get to a point where you say to yourself, now, how important is that really? You know, really, how, in the scheme of things, you didn't live long enough to find out that some of that just ain't that important.
Ridiculous.
You know, just, it really isn't. You don't need to be spending no more time, no more energy. If that's what you think, I'm happy for you. You know, but I just can't spend any more time on that. I think when I think about success, it's really interesting. I don't use that word a lot. Because it can get redefined, just like Iris said, day by day.
Yes.
So I don't use that word. What I know is if I feel that what I am doing is on my path, and if I'm obedient to whatever that call is for that time, I already know it's going to be successful. I already know it's going to work. I have always, well, I won't say always, I'd say in the past 50 years, maybe 30 years. If this is what I think I am being called to do, then I know already that it is already done.
Yeah.
It's already good. I just have to do the work. But in terms of whatever the outcome, the outcome has already been defined for me as well done.
Yeah.
And I just need to do the work. I used to have an intuition chime that would say, time to put it down, go get a glass of wine. And so I think it's broken, or I feel like there's so much more I need to be doing that I don't have time to like stop all the time.
And do you feel that you both take, I'm not even going to say better, do you think that you both take different care of yourself than you used to when you were younger?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. There are some things I do for myself that I have been doing for so long that when I hear other women talk about it, it's like it's a treat for them. So I get a massage every other week. Like taking self-care is not getting my nails and feet done. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I make sure that I connect with friends where I can just be Fran
Yeah.
I don't have to be Fran Frazier.
Yes.
I can just chill out, be loud, because I'm from Philadelphia. I want to be loud. I want to laugh loud. So I make time for that. I do make time for myself, and be in nature, because that's what chills me out.
Yeah.
So I sometimes I'm really good at it, and then some days I'm not so good at it, and so I have to bump my head to remind myself, you know, you really do need to just sit down, have a glass of wine, watch that movie, and don't have your laptop by your side, don't have a notepad by your side. But I think I'm better at being more aware of it now than I was before.
Okay. What about you, Dr. Iris? Different care?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. From that 2-year COVID isolation kind of thing, it made me painfully aware that every day is precious.
Yes.
And why do I keep putting off some things that I want to do or need to do when I can go ahead and just do them?
Yes.
And so I'm very much aware that the clock is ticking. And so I've got a bucket list. Bucket list really means something to me now. And I got a whole lot of things in my bucket list. Then some of them I'm gonna do with friends, and some of them I may just have to do by myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to live every moment to the maximum. I've got a few health challenges that I have to deal with. But life is important, and what I leave at the end of the day, I want to be on a positive note.
Yeah. You know, this is our last rounding out question, and I just wrote this down because it's like what's in my spirit, and just I have so much gratitude for just holding space with y'all today. I feel like, really honestly, I was in super hyper busybody mode, and I feel like when we're done and we leave this studio, I feel much more grounded. You know, I feel way more grounded. And I feel like I'm reminded that I am on a pathway, and like whatever's gonna be, it's gonna be. It's good. It's good.
It's good already.
And I literally wrote down, and I say this all the time, and I do meditate in this space, but I think I was so busybody in the last few days I forgot, and I wrote down the sentence, "Don't miss the moment." Like, you know, and they're all around me, and I have to remind myself, and y'all just help to ground me in that. So I just, before I forget, just want to say thank you. Thank you for just allowing me to be in the space with you. This last question I have for you is centered on this principle, this philosophy, and talking about history, is Sankofa, this African, you know, philosophy of Sankofa, to go back and get it, go back and get that which we have forgotten. If there was a gift, right, and thinking about how sometimes for us, we're moving so fast, and to your points that I heard in my spirit about just like, did you forget what all we've been through? Like, as a people, that you're linked to a whole lineage of folks who have laid some groundwork for you. Like, that's why this is a little bit easier for you, because you didn't do the whole thing. Right. You know, and if we're leaning into that, that means, and sometimes we're in some struggles that's not a new struggle.
Right.
You know, and we're trying to create new ideas. There's nothing new under the sun, but you might need to reach back to figure out what the proper mindset is and heart space is to respond. And then thinking about that, if we were to go back and get it by listening to you in this moment, what might be a gift that you would deposit into this space to help us to remember or to not forget? Like, don't forget this, particularly when it comes to us. Don't forget this, right? So if we're having a Sankofa moment with you as we get ready to check out of this space, what would you like for us to remember? What would you like for us to make sure we do not forget?
And are we talking as women?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I can do that real quickly, is my girlfriends. I wouldn't be sitting here today without the friends of the world.
Yeah.
I have a group of loyal friends that I have had for years since I came to Columbus. And without them, without our mutual trust and respect and love for one another through thick and thin, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I'd be somewhere in a rest home looking out a window, in a rocking chair.
Yeah.
I would echo what Iris has said. I think that friends are really important, but you also have to know how to be a friend to have friends. And friendship does take sacrifice. And finding women who are worthy of you and you are worthy of them is a lifetime kind of thing. I I think that if there was something I wanted to go back and get and bring it forward, it would be reminding me that, our ancestors were moved by the constellation of the stars. And I would just like, I say this to the girls sometimes, every star is designed to shine in its own light. That you don't see stars crowding out other stars. You don't see stars trying to shine brighter than another star. You just shine as bright as you can. But if you're shining bright, the women around you know that they can shine as bright as they can.
Yeah.
Then you create the energy to keep us out of nursing homes, to have us feeling healthy, to have us feeling wealthy.
Yeah.
Without a dollar sign.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's what we always have to go back and get. And not, and don't believe the hype that there aren't Black women you can't be friends with and can't love and can't share with. Because they're literally all around us. But you have to nurture that. You have to be mindful of that. You've got to build those relationships. So I would, like the girls say, yep, that's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, on behalf of the Women's Center for Economic Opportunity, on behalf of Elevate Us All, but selfishly because I needed the medicine today, I am so humbled and grateful to just sit and absorb and listen. All is well with my soul, and I'm so grateful for both of you, for not just all you've done. You've done an unspeakable amount, not just for the city, but for the culture. Thank you for that. But most especially, thank you for, and y'all said this several different times, thank you for knowing who you are, leaning into that, saying yes to that, and just being unapologetic about it. Because I think sometimes without speaking it out loud, that's what we need. We need to know that that's okay. And thank you both for doing that. I am so
Thank
grateful.
you, Kim.
Thank you.
I think our families, I think the women in our lives were in this conversation as well.
Oh, absolutely, Iris. Absolutely.
So thank you for inviting them.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I am full.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. And thank you for those who may have tuned in. Make sure that you follow WCEO in all of the places and spaces. And we are sending you light. And this was some good news for today. So make sure you pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you
Dr.
all.
Iris.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to WCEO's Elevate Us All. We thank our sponsors, JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America. The Women's Center for Economic Opportunity is a 501c3 based in Columbus, Ohio, dedicated to elevating and empowering African American women and other women of color in business and in the workplace. You can connect with us on the web at womensceo.org. Thank you for listening.